Hello, this is checkpoint 3.6. In this checkpoint, we're given a couple of vector valued functions, r of t and u of t, and they want us to calculate first the derivative of the dot product of r of t and r prime of t, and then they want us to calculate the derivative of the cross product of u of t and r of t. So we're going to break this up into a couple of videos just so we can focus on the product, the derivative of products. And so this is essentially going to be using product rules. Okay, so let's focus for this video. We're going to look at the derivative of r of t dotted with r prime of t. All right, now the product rule tells us that this is actually equal to the derivative of the first dotted with second. So that's r prime of t dotted with itself, and then plus the first term, or the first function, that's without the prime. So that's r, just regular r of t, and then dotted with the derivative of the second one, which is the second derivative. All right, so before we dive into that, we need to find a couple of things. We need to find out the first and second derivatives of r. So that's r prime of t is equal to the derivative of cosine is negative sine. The derivative of sine is positive cosine. And the derivative of the exponential, it's still a negative 2e to the 2t. Okay, that's our first derivative. Now our second derivative we'll need for this term, last term over here. So we need to take the derivative of this. The derivative of sine is cosine, but there's a negative in front. And derivative of cosine is negative sine. And then one more derivative here, that's going to give us a 4e to the 2t. Okay. All right, we're going to now take the dot product, and remember that the dot product gives you a scalar function, and so your result is not going to be a vector anymore. Let's first take a look at these two. That would be r prime of t dotted with itself. This is actually the magnitude squared, but let's just do the dot product. Negative sine times negative sine is positive cosine, or negative sine times negative sine is negative, or positive sine squared. So let's call it sine squared t, in no more I or j, because remember that it's a scalar. Plus cosine times itself is cosine squared t, and then this, even though it's a negative, we're going to multiply it by itself. It's going to be 4 e to the, and then you have to square this. E to the 2t quantity squared is e to the 4t. Okay, this looks like it'll simplify to just 1 plus 4e to the 4t. Okay, that's our first one. Now, our second one, we're actually going to do the dot product of the original function with its second derivative. And the original function is up here, cosine ti sine tj minus e to the 2tk, and our second derivative is here. So we have a cosine times a negative cosine, so that will be negative cosine squared t. We have a negative sine times positive sine, that's negative sine squared t. And then we have e to the 2t with a negative and a negative, so that's a positive, and if you multiply that, that would be 4e to the 4t. Okay, and that looks like it simplifies to negative 1 plus 4e to the 4t. Looks like we're running out of space. Let me write it right below it equals -1 plus 4e to the 4t. Okay, so according to this, we're going to need to add this plus this, so we're adding this plus this, and that is going to be your result, the derivative of r of t dotted with r prime of t. That's going to be the sum of these two, and if we add them, we have a -1, -1 is 0, and then we have a 4 plus 4 is 8 with the same like term, e to the 4t. Okay, that should be your solution for this one. The next one will need a little bit more space, so we'll clear this out and we'll have a checkpoint 3.6 part 2.